Good morning. I'm Father Ryan Humphries. This is the CU Catecast. Welcome back. We're very, very happy to have you with us. So I'm talking today about to Compostela. Now, just to set the stage for a very, very brief sense, we're talking about the northern part of Spain, really just kind of the top. So this is the northern part. This is a mountainous region, and historically, the Romans got there as early as they could. Lots of silver, lots of high-value metals in the northern part of Spain, and so from a very, very early on, the Romans, prior to the birth of Christ, had set up shop and had created the province of Hispania. By the time that Jesus shows up on the scene, the province of Hispania is actually in size and rises again. The apostles know that somebody has got to go that way because it's a huge epicenter of culture for the Romans. Same house as Jesus. He's very, very trusted by Jesus. And so St. James is going to spend about a year around Jerusalem, kind of them getting their act together. And then he heads to Spain and begin doing ministry around 30 AD, something like that. When it becomes clear that the Blessed Virgin Mary is apostles, came back. We don't know how they got the information, but we know that they all got the information. They all came back to Jerusalem. And so it was, and we know that St. James was, for whatever reason, martyred in what we would call the Middle East. And yet we know too that in Jerusalem, off the wall of Jerusalem down into the valley below, and his disciples, that is the people, he was kind of his entourage of ministry. We fast forward now to the 900s or so, and I want to say it's the 900s because I always get a little confused when we talk about the 10th century versus the 8th century and those kind of things. But somewhere in the 900s, there is a simple little monk who is from the south, has had an Islamic in the 500s, and so we have these little kingly peopled by folks who we would call Celts and basically the folks of Ireland and Scotland, if you can imagine. They basically set up shop. They kind of wanted to go further, but everything else was taken, so they took the northern and western parts of Spain. So we have the Galicia, and then you have what's called the Basque country, and then you have, which is where modern-day, say, Pamplona and San Sebastian are, and they players of the game. So we're in the 900s. We've got the Muslims at the bottom. We've got these kingdoms across the top, and we have a monk who is praying, and the Lord gives him a vision field. And if you follow the star, I will show you the field I'm talking about. And if you dig it up, you'll find the body of St. James. And so this monk, goes, sounds like a party. So he gets up and he goes to this field, this Compostela, this field under. There are messages, there are things kind of etched in stone indicating what's going on. And sure enough, it is the body of St. James along with all his retinue. Later, as archaeology becomes a thing, it's maybe 8 or 9 separate times now it's been validated that this is the this happens as the Reconquista really ramping up. And so it becomes a cause of pilgrimage for a bunch of different reasons. One, because everybody's really excited because this is one apostle, right? All the other apostles are either lost or they're in Rome and Jerusalem, which is why Jerusalem was the most popular, then Rome, then Santiago de Compostela of the ancient. Everybody wanted to go to Santiago de Compostela. And so that kind of plays out. The Reconquista is successful, Spain is reconquered, and the pilgrimage remains a big deal, and the Camino starts to become less and less popular until, bizarrely, the mid-1970s, when a priest who is assigned to a relatively small parish called Ocoto says, look, there's this Camino, this ancient trail. People have been using this thing forever and ever. Its popularity's fallen off. Arrows. Centuries. It was incredibly important for the Reconquista in the 11th century, and then its popularity began to wane, and in, bizarrely, the 20th century, now Pope Benedict and those are significant part. What we would call tends to be used as a 70s and 80s. The premise of a plenary indulgence at the Pilgrim's Mass. Remember, Father, but anyway, you go to the church, you feel in the ancient world as well. Pilgrimage journey. I'm sure the 18-year-olds with their perfect. And in the modern world, since the place is littered, I'll explain relatively inexpensive experience component is and scallop shell, and you say, I need to turn here, or you see a cross next to pig or kind of cobblestone four-wheeler path and everything else. Some of it is very, very well finished. Some of it's really, really not. But the main, the best quality walking along the experience of the Camino, the other that has the same meaning as pension, a kind of like a bed and breakfast type situation where instead of private rooms, it's bunk beds and bunk rooms. There's a shared bathroom, shared meal or snack that's offered there. Nice is if that's the cheap way to make a vacation, especially if you already live in Spain or England or Italy or Germany, and all you're talking about is $100 trend for very, very finding out who they are, historic or cultural. Ask this at the end, which is how we know that information. In the course of walking with a group of people, chocolate cake, conversations that otherwise I ask about things and say, oh yes, and so that Camino is so much fun. Ordinary human time, 6 and 8 for breakfast. We eat somewhere around noon for lunch, and depending on our age and preferences, seen for supper. Meager, it's small, and it's usually 3 to 4 to 5. A beer, it's crazy. It's what ends out topping for your supper on both. You think about, and then the remarkable manchego, usually served along a side of craft brewed beer or just delicious Spanish wine, and a sandwich goes for the experience, as is here a little bit fast of the Camino are you have to get this special at least every day. Sometimes this is a nod sort, which is a Spanish word that means the last 100 kilometers. The first time I was injured, practical, a few little other things about there. The very had that has of course the church and the cathedral itself has an grill on the feet. The incenser stands about 5'8" from the ground. It hangs on a rope that is about 2.5 inches, 1400s. Engineers trying to figure out how to build a gigantic censer that you put about 10 pounds of charcoal in. Basically, you can think of like a bag of Kingsford, and you light all that up, and then they put a pound of incense. They have this giant lathe thing, and they kind of arrange themselves with these big church. So it goes. The original reason for it, besides the fact that hard, and every time I've been walking, just incenser on the planet, really apostle. Pilgrims would. This is a rich archbishop who built all this, plated. It's spectacularly beautiful. Finishing this talk is jet, what is called and of that place. And so the scallop shell is carved out of everything. Everything gets carved into scallop shell. The other, though, is a bizarre, is purchased very seriously, but now it's just something that's its relative version of the same, causing some eyes from Master Mateo, his grandparents in church. It's weird. Is there the Holy Year doesn't work in Santiago if and only if the Feast of St. Holy, an old tradition of Compostela, don't Sunday. I want to work. So I mentioned along, and I was wearing a hat. See, the things you can quiche sort of thing, but I said no, give me the chocolate coffee. And I'm kind of flying under, and it was just from some issues with never be a moment for the American. They must have a real deal, and we're walking off down the wrong way. Interest 40 days until you make stay in hotels the whole way. Interested necessarily in walk. You took a bus from Santiago de Burgos, Leon. And that's worth seeing to get a sense of the experience of going. And so that to the history